Pretty cool. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Christian Life Coach Podcast. I'm Shanna Pizer, your Christian life coach. We have been talking about identity, lies that we believe, and specifically the lies that we have kind of believed underneath the surface that we recognize, or maybe you haven't recognized yet, are kind of operating under the surface and having an impact on how you feel throughout your days and how you interact in your life with other people, in situations, in traffic, maybe. And this month, I am doing something different and having guests come onto the show and talk about their experiences and how they have recognized lies that they have believed, whether outright on purpose or just underneath the surface, and they've recognized these lies and changed the story and started living from the truth, or are practicing living from the truth rather than living from the lie. So today I have another guest, and she is Lisa Herbstreet. And I would love it, Lisa, if you would introduce yourself.
Hey Shannon, thanks for having me. My name's Lisa Herbstreet. I, above all else, am a beloved daughter of an Almighty God. So yes, I'm a lifelong believer. I am single. I am 50 something. I have no children of my own. I am Aunt Lisa to many. I am, for a vocation, I've been a corporate accountant for over 30 years. And I actually started after I got my bachelor's degree in accounting from Indiana University. I did earn a master's from Indiana Wesleyan in management, and I have been certified both at different times in my career as a project manager and more recently as a certified life coach as well, similar to Shanna.
Yay. And what are you planning to do with your certification, if I
I
might ask?
I was going to say, I am still currently working in corporate accounting, but I would like to transition to a full time life coach. And so my plan is to do it slowly and methodically so that I can replace my income from my career and to my business. So I'm excited about that. And the best thing about doing that with life coaching is there's so many ways to create a life coaching business that you can just, there's lots of opportunities there. So I'm excited about it.
Very cool. Okay. So, what is the story or the lie that you have recognized that has operated in your life?
I was going to say that in general, the lie that I've told myself, I would say pretty much my entire career, is that, like I said, I've always worked in corporate America in an accounting role. And so I've always been part of a team. I've never done anything entrepreneurial before. But I am related to, I had a grandfather that started his own business. My brother and sister-in-law have owned more than one business. I have several friends who are entrepreneurs. And so I see what it's like. I see what the lifestyle is like. Most everybody that I've known that's done their own business, I mean, in every business, of course, there's failures, but most of them have been successful. So that's kind of cool to be around that sort of thing. But I think based on my experience is that I just always went into a corporate role thinking my whole career that's what I'm going to do. And the lie I've been telling myself is that entrepreneurs work all the time, 24/7. They never get a break. And that's just not the life I've ever wanted. And to be honest with you, even from an accounting point of view, when I was in college as an undergrad, I remember being like the public accounting firms would come in to recruit us and they would talk about these 70 and 80-hour weeks that all of the first years were working. And I specifically did not want to go into public accounting because I didn't want to work 70 or 80 hours a week. I mean, what do you do? I just couldn't even imagine what that looked like. And when they would come in and describe it, you would kind of be like, okay, that does, I don't know if that, I mean, some of it was fun because maybe it was in a big city like Chicago or something like that. But I was like, what do you, and some of my friends that actually did end up doing it, literally, would go like they never had time to enjoy anything outside of that job. And for that reason, most public accounting, it's known in our industry that you last about 2 to 3 years and then you move on to something else. So I just decided to cut the middleman and do corporate accounting to start with. So I've always had that in my mind that I wanted a balance, and I do think that comes from parents that instilled that in us too. That we did prioritize rest and vacation as a family and that sort of thing, and service, those sort of things that you do outside of work, so that you have to have time away from the job. And if you're working 70, 80-hour weeks, there's not much time away from the job then. So
No.
that's what I mean. The lie that I believe is basically just that running my own business would be too hard. So why would I ever even want to consider? Because I did have people along the way that said, if you didn't want to work for a big company, why don't you just do bookkeeping or something? Like you could run your own business. And my thought was always, well, I mean, then you just work all the time. Like that sounded horrible to me. So that's kind of what I've always told myself about being an entrepreneur, was just that one aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. And also underneath that, is it something that you've always kind of wanted to do,
Well, the
but you
interesting
talked
thing
yourself
is,
out of because of that belief?
yeah, the interesting thing is that I I think I would, only from the point of view that sometimes working in, especially depending on what size corporation you work for, because I have had the opportunity and the blessing to work for lots of different kinds of companies. When you work in a really big company, a lot of times it tends to be you feel like a number. So it was like, if you worked for yourself, obviously that would get rid of that. You wouldn't have to worry about that. And then there's, of course, the other side of it is the benefits that come along with working for a bigger company, as far as retirement and insurance and all the different things that they do cover that you have to, on your own, figure out how to pay for if you're working on your own. So it was always a balance between the two, but I don't know if I think I just always thought with accounting that I would stay in corporate America and not work on my own, but not something that I'd ever really considered until I got further along in life, I guess.
Yeah. So what uncovered it for you? How did you recognize that that was the story that you were telling about entrepreneurship? And what
Yeah.
kind of shifted when you recognized that?
So probably about 10 years ago when my parents retired, um, it was funny. I was having a conversation with my brother, like I said, who owned his own business, and is one of those people that tends, I mean, he does try to also balance things, but he will say it's always on your mind. You got, both of the businesses that he worked, he always had teams of people. Like he had 20 or 30 people. He's like, that's a lot of responsibility, that you're responsible for their livelihoods as well. And so we would talk about that and just talk through that as well. But then as our parents were retiring, one of the interesting things, excuse me, was that we're just kind of noticing our father retired first, and he just, like, he was busy around the house, but with mom still working, it was just kind of like, what's he do all, it's just like that idea. Literally, it was like watching that older generation who had worked hard their whole life, so they deserved retirement. But it's kind of like, did they really have a plan of what they were going to do with their time? And that was when him and I, both my brother and I, just started thinking about the idea. He just assumed he would still be doing some kind of business. He goes, and I'll just most likely ramp down the hours I spend on it and give it to the kids, and then move on. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thought. So like I kind of thought to myself, I need to figure out something I want to do that I enjoy doing, that would be something I could do the same with, which is so it was kind of what switched it for me. But what's kind of interesting about it was what also switched it at that same time. It wasn't exactly the same time, but probably about 3 or 4 years later is when I first found life coaching. And in being introduced to what life coaching is, I was just doing it as somebody that wanted to be coached, and then found out there's a community. You could be coached as a community in groups, and that was something I wanted to invest in for myself and to help myself grow or heal or change, transform, change my mind. Um, but at the same time, it was like I wasn't thinking about it as a job until it's almost it's kind of the way this community works is they also sell it as just go deeper for yourself. And then as you do that, all of a sudden I just start to realize like I actually have always kind of been a coach. Like I've done this before. And if you've ever been involved in small groups at church or leadership at work, even that can be if you've got a team of people, you've probably coached them in some capacity. So like I said, there's so many opportunities with coaching. That's the nice thing about it. But that was really when it sort of shifted for me. And what was funny was I don't really know that I had thought about and connected the two until just recently about the lie of, oh, you got to work too hard to do this, to, oh, maybe that is something I could do. If you found the right entrepreneurial endeavor, then maybe you could do it and still be able to balance all the things you want to get done.
Yeah.
So,
And especially with coaching, because I mean, the way that my mentor and the way that I teach is it's a lifestyle business. You're creating this business or cultivating your practice to not take over your life, but to fit into your life and also
yes.
to be what enables your life, right?
Right, right. Well, and
And
that's kind
so,
of one of the fun things to watch is just how knowing the ways that you run your business that you don't particularly, I mean, you do live in a certain place, but that I know that you sometimes do your business from a different state, even sometimes, but you can run that, you can do that when you have your own business that way. So
yeah,
that's kind
yeah,
of, that would be something that would be of interest to me for
yeah.
sure.
And also, I have seen a like memes on Instagram that are like, I decided I didn't want to work 50 to 60 hours a week at my job, so I went into business for myself and worked 24/7.
Yeah, well, true. Yeah, very true. Very true.
And also, like, I mean, I definitely don't work 24/7, but when you're doing something like this that is so much fun and impactful and focused on people, it doesn't feel like work,
Right.
really.
And I
So,
see that a lot in even the community that we're in that that's the part that's neat. And some of my friends that own their own business, one of them, her husband, we always did joke about that he never worked a day in his life because from the time he was 11 years old, he was teaching himself how to be an excavator and dig in the dirt. And it was just like, and then when I really realized, later when I really learned what he did for it's like, oh my gosh. And he was self-taught. I mean, it's pretty impressive what you can learn. And
yeah,
then you just get the reputation over the years of being the best in the area. So people hire you all the time. Word of mouth. I mean, it's pretty impressive. But he didn't act like he worked a day in his life because he loved doing what he did.
loved what he's doing. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So what was the thought shift?
So I was gonna say some of the transformation was just the idea that like as I was in my career too, I've kind of changed jobs every 5 or 7 years. So it's not like for 30 years I worked with the same company. So I've always had kind of a change anyway. And then the other thing that dawned on me was that I've given this advice to so many people. It's just kind of funny how little we listen to our own self as we say it. But it is true. It's kind of like that when you take this leap of faith and you do something different that could be a risk. Even if it is successful, say that's the thing with client. I mean, being a coach means that you need clients, so you need to figure out or you make offers that bring in revenue. And as an accountant, of course, you understand that even better than most people. So you need the revenue to come in.
Yeah.
But as you're doing that, then what if something changes in the economy or all these risks of what could happen in the future? But one of the things I remember, I even said that to my brother in the first business he did. I said, even if you guys were to go do this and say, for whatever reason, the market just wasn't open to what you're selling them, then I know you and your wife, you're going to go back to the corporate world and you're going to work your butt off and it'll be fine. You just
Yeah.
go back and do what you know you've done in the past. So why couldn't I take that on? That same advice. Not that I want to start from thinking that way, but just knowing if you go to the worst case scenario that say all the demand for what you're selling isn't there, then you just go back and find another way. So part of it was just like even the worst case scenario probably isn't going to happen. So what am I worried about? So I think that was a little bit of it was just me with my accountant analytical mind stop over analyzing it and just
Yeah,
focus on what you need to do to get it done. So I
yeah,
think that was a little bit of the shift was the truth. I guess the truth of what really is probably going to happen, not the fear of what could happen.
yeah,
So
exactly. Like thinking, oh my word, if I go into being an entrepreneur, if I start my own business, I have to work all the time. Okay, is that actually true? Do I actually have to work all the time?
right,
And
right,
kind of backing yourself up. I love that.
right, right.
So what has God been teaching you in this
I think
phase?
I was gonna yeah, so one of the things I do think that God's been teaching me too is that when I think about like some of the labels that I would have put on myself for like what the lie I was believing that you couldn't do this, like you wouldn't want to do it. You're too laid back. And I mean, I think that's sometimes when people do, they'll say that about you is like, yeah, you do seem to balance, you seem to balance life so well or whatever. It's like you're not a workaholic, you're not constantly stressed out by work, and you do take time off and you do take vacations and you do things with friends and family and that sort of thing. And you have a life away from like they'll look at you and say, you're so laid back, like you got it so and it's almost like in certain ways that lie too that you're labeled as indifferent, like am I not compassionate about anything, am I not do I not have and it's like are you just kind of too laid back or just like you don't have the discipline to actually run a business. That was my other lie that I was like, do I have like all that it takes? I know that I would have the intelligence to do it, just do I have the desire, I guess, behind that. And so I think what he's been showing me is that absolutely. I mean that just comes again. I think with that idea of when you find something you really enjoy doing, it doesn't feel as much like work. And even though I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing. I kind of already know that from accounting because some people would look at number crunching and saying, oh my gosh, how can you do that all day? Well, that's the thing. God really gave me the ability to do it. So I understand why I can do it is because like just being able to balance something actually makes me all excited. So I get, you know, for most people, they'd be like, yeah, I don't get it. Um,
Yeah.
but but at the same time, with just like the idea of working with people and helping people, especially get to a place where they have more freedom in their life from overcoming other fears and things that I've been able to work on in the last couple of years being part of our coaching community. That's something that I would enjoy doing for sure. And
Yeah.
definitely God just keeps reminding me that that's the calling that He's placed on my heart and what He so gifted me to do, not just the numbers, but also
Yeah.
the people part, connecting with people. Yeah.
One of the things that I've talked about, and I talked with Teresa last week, was how we have that the belief, and when we're thinking that, when we're believing that thing, whatever it is, our brain is constantly building a case for that thing to prove it true.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine when you were thinking, "Ugh, you don't really want to be an entrepreneur, you have to work all the time, like you're building a case and going to all of those worst case scenarios, all the evidence that shows why you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And then as you shift and are thinking, well, maybe I do want to do this because I can do it in a different way. What is some of the evidence that you have been able to gather to support that?
Oh, oh, I have such a great example for that
Oh,
question
yay.
is
Because this
how
was
God,
not in the notes for the
I
episode. So
was,
sorry.
but it is no, but I really do have such a great example because in God and all his sense, I always say God has a sense of humor, or he has what is it, long suffering patience for me as his daughter. But that's what I really mean is that his sense of humor is related to that. So in my corporate career, one of the things that has happened is that sort of thing where sometimes when I'm definitely the kind of person I might hear the Holy Spirit nudge me or God say or whatever, say this is the way we want to go. And I'm just like, I don't think I heard that right. I don't think I'm ready for that, so I kind of want to say, are you sure, God? And then he's always so good. He's so patient with me in that 8 months ago, my job and my 5 year long commitment in a job where the company was doing well, I thought would be there. I was kind of hoping until retirement, but you never know. In my mind, I just always think it's going to change every 5 years, so I never want to say until retirement. But it actually the company ended up getting sold, and my job actually got eliminated. So I was without a job, but I was able to find a new role. And the part that's kind of where I say God's kind of working it all together behind the scenes is one of the things that this new role happened to be was that they wanted to hire me as a contractor instead of a W-2 employee, which means that I am going to have to like start an LLC or a business, which is what I needed to do for my coaching business anyway. So it just moved that process along. It also gave me the opportunity to work with a CPA to set it up that I was actually working with in my job so I could ask all the right questions and find out the right ways to do it. So it was such a blessing and just evidence that I guess this is the way I need to be going, to where now I have that already set up. I have it established and all the things. I even got my first tax return filed for last year. So I mean everything started and it was almost like one of those things where I didn't plan it. It's just the way it worked. So yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where he's just showing me, yeah, see, this could be done. You could do this. That's fine.
I
And
love
it
that
is
when
just a
you
better
get
way.
confirmations along the
Yes.
way. You're like,
And
oh,
and and one of those things that for a non-accountant would like probably be very stressful, but for me, who has done payroll in my role in accounting for over the years, it was just like, oh yeah, I can do it. It's just to me, it's just a different way of doing something that's not stressful at all. So yeah, and that is kind of interesting. I had never thought about it that was just evidence of God saying this is the way we're going.
yeah,
So
I love that.
yeah.
I love that so much. So, what helps you in the process of renewing your mind, which I have recently discovered that mind renewal, our renewing of our mind is the weapon that we use in order to take our thoughts captive in obedience of Christ. That is the weapon that
Yes.
we use. And
Yes.
so I have a whole new like appreciation and love for be transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is the tagline for this podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say one of the things that this isn't even anything I wrote down on a note either, but I know I've said it to you before in your presence before, so you'll know what I'm talking about when I say it. But one of my motivations for really transforming my mind and wanting to stop believing the lies and start believing the truth is the idea behind so many people in the world have loved ones that are dealing with any kind of brain disease or Alzheimer's or dementia. And our family is one of those families. My mom's been in memory care now for 4 years. And to see someone that was such a brilliant, bright person, my mom was a nurse her entire career and raised two um, good adults in the world and raised good humans and had a as has and still has a 60-year long marriage that was successful and just impacted a lot of people's lives. And then to see how her life has changed from and granted, I mean that's the thing. We really don't know what causes it. However, it's your mind. So in my mind, I'm just thinking anything I can do to keep my mind healthy, or at least to keep my mind not on lies. I mean, that's the thing. And I'm not saying my mom was the kind of person that just believed all the lies, but she was human like all of us. I mean, she really was. So that's my thing is that part of me is grateful to have this work to do and be doing it now in the last third of or chapters of our lives versus at the very, I mean, at least it's not at the very end when it's too late and who knows if we can or can't make any difference. So that's so not to totally get serious, but that is kind of my why behind wanting to do the transformation work for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so good.
yeah,
And it is like it doesn't even nothing bad about her or anybody, but
yeah.
they were probably living on autopilot and their
Oh
brains
yeah,
were just going and doing whatever brains do. And so, this work that we do in coaching and in the intentional thought work and journaling and the creation cycle, we are engaging our brain on purpose, making like exercising the brain, making sure the neurons are firing, changing the neural pathways, like our making sure that our brain is active in a productive way. Who knows?
yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I am grateful for is just that the all the research and all the things we know now that they didn't know 25 years ago. So it is a lot that we can take advantage of for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, what's the identity that you are working on living from, and like what is do you have like an anchor thought? Do you have a like a transformed belief that you are working on living into?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know, like as far as just spiritually, one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is the one from Ephesians 3:20 that talks about how God will do abundantly more than we can ask or imagine. And I'm not quoting it perfectly, but those are the parts that stand out the most to me is that we can't even imagine how much He will do for us. And through the power of the Holy Spirit that's already in us. So that's the thing. We already have everything we need for him to do the work. And the idea, mostly it's biblical, is the idea that one of his favorite things to do is work in our weaknesses. So anything that we're a little bit afraid by, or that you feel like it's a risky next step, that means it's probably the right one to take. So I've learned that over the last couple of years, or at least decade,
Well, isn't that
that the more
interesting, Lisa
I
Herbstreit?
know, isn't it? Oh, did I just tell my coach that I knew that all along? Oh yeah, I've definitely known it all along. It's not my favorite lesson, but I even have evidence to know that it's true because I've done it several times and been like, look at and that's my thing is I mean it actually what deepens my faith is that I'll be afraid, I'll take the step, I'll watch God do it, and then I'll be like, of course he did. It's just like okay. Even just moving to Texas 10 years ago was, I mean, I was moving away from all my friends and the life that I built in another state completely, and then moving here to be close to family. But still, it was like having to restart over. But I mean, to watch all the things he's provided along the way, it's been a lot of fun too. So God will do it every time. That's for sure. That's
I
for
don't,
sure.
so is your first reaction, of course he did, or is it, oh my word, I can't believe that happened? And then like, well, yeah, of course he did.
He
Because
did. Well,
I start out with the
I do
holy
sometimes.
smokes,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, no, I
And then
think
it's
I
like,
do. Yeah, I'm
why
still
don't
in
I
awe.
expect
I'm
it?
still in
Yeah.
awe, especially because, like, even one of the things that I found so interesting when I moved, because I was in a small town, I was in a small college town in Indiana when I moved, and that was where I got my MBA. And what was interesting about it, the company that even helped pay for the tuition part, every time I would interview for another job, there was always somebody else in the company I was interviewing against, and that person always got the job. And it wasn't, those were never bad things. And because I believed that we were equally qualified, but it was just kind of funny because I'm like, well, I finally went and got my MBA, and yet I'm not using it at all. Well, here's the thing, God's making the plan for later, and you move you across the country and you get to
Yeah.
this big city market. I'm in a bigger market that has more opportunity. And my first salary was 40% more than what I made when I was in Indiana. So even just that, you talk about wow, I was like, and I'm not, I was making good enough money when I was in Indiana. So
Yeah.
I'm like, what
That's
is this
awesome.
all about? But then it dawned on me, oh, that's right. They're looking at my resume and I have an MBA on it. So,
Oh
they're
yeah,
going to
I
pay for
forgot.
that.
I did that thing,
Yeah.
which
That thing, yeah, a
it's
couple of years ago.
it's
Yeah.
so funny because you were talking
But
about how people say that you're laid back and like thinking, okay, are they thinking that I'm indifferent or apathetic or whatever? And I'm thinking, you got an MBA, you cannot be indifferent and apathetic to do
yeah,
that.
that's true. That is anybody that can write that many papers in 2 years' time. That's a good. And when
Yeah.
you're an accountant, I'm not a paper
Yes.
writer. I was not a paper writer at the time. So, yeah,
You can be
I just
laid back and dedicated and disciplined at the same time. I do
true,
believe.
true.
Is
If
there
not for
anything
the
else you
lies
want to
that we
share?
believe sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Anything else
But
that you wrote down in your notes that you wanted to make sure that you got to say?
I was going to say, too, one of the things, I mean, as far as the identity of what I'm becoming now, is just that idea of God really kind of opened up my eyes to the idea of the kind of in our community we talk a lot about what kind of business like life coaching do you do in general, or do you want to have a niche, and they actually kind of go against the niche. However, a lot of places say you have to have one. And what I just thought was interesting, even when I was considering doing it, I was like, it wouldn't be fun to do something that I'm already good at, like I already know how to do with my eyes closed, but other people struggle with. And then finally, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me immediately that that would be accounting related, but it took me a while to get there for the light bulb to go off, and or just God's better timing. But he's really kind of opened up my eyes to this concept that I've been kind of telling all my friends that are entrepreneurs along the way, is like you really need to make some time to make sure you're stewarding what you're making, because you are successful and making all this money. Make sure you're investing it back in your business well, or investing it for your future, or whatever you want to do. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I could just help people get their books started and get their businesses going. And I was like, this could this be a coaching business? It's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And so that's what I'm excited about being able to launch eventually, is being able to help people just steward their, and that's the other part too, just be good financial stewards of their businesses. And then at the same time too, start my own in the same
Yeah.
way, and
Be an
be the
entrepreneur helping
example.
entrepreneurs.
Right, exactly, exactly. Be a small business owner, and then
Yeah.
interesting that I would just be like, interesting that this is the lie that I've that I put behind me, that I wouldn't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? That makes you
Yeah.
work too much. So yeah, and
So
maybe
what would
just
you
that lesson
say?
as well.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say to the woman that's kind of at the beginning of that journey where you were? How would you encourage her going forward?
I love this question. And the very first thing that literally came to me was just like two scriptures, really, because it's one of the ones that I definitely lean on too. And I know I'm going to have to do something risky, but just the fact that so many times in the Bible we're reminded to be strong and courageous. And most likely that's because God knew that when He created us, the first thing we were going to do was believe that we're not going to believe the lies that we can't do this. I can't do this. There's way too many stories in the Bible. Moses didn't think he could do it. Um, I mean, so many people in the Bible that said, "I can't do this. Why would you put me in charge of this? I stutter. I can't even talk right." So just to be strong and courageous, I think would always be my first, and it is a lot of times my first advice to younger people. But also the idea that and this is one that I'm very much preaching to myself, that there's no fear. Perfect love drives out all fear. That nothing that we're supposed to be doing is based in fear. It's always based in love. So just keep to remember that when the fear creeps up, that's not anything that's supposed to be motivating us at all. So yeah.
Say that again.
So when fear creeps up, that is never supposed to be what's motivating us, especially as business owners, for sure, or people in general. I mean,
People.
just the way
Yeah,
yeah, face our
yeah.
relationships, we face our day. Fear is not
Yes.
the way to face it, for sure.
Nope. I love that. Fear is the driver of all of the things false self, and
Yes,
love is the driver of all things true self.
right.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Thank you so much for being here, Lisa.
You're
When
welcome.
people want to find you, where do they go?
I am on right now. I'm on both Instagram and Facebook at L Herb Street. So it's HERBSTREIT. Just very German and doesn't follow any rules. So,
It does. When two vows go a walking, the first one does the talking.
Oh, well, there you go. I've never heard that rule before.
What?
I only heard the I before E except after C,
Oh,
and
yes.
that was the one I needed to
When
follow.
two vows go a walking, the
Yeah.
first one does the talking.
Okay. There you go. Then it does. Yeah. For pronunciation, it definitely is.
Yeah. Yep, yep. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. We will continue on and see who we have next week on the podcast. If you want to follow up with Lisa, go find her at L Herb Street on Facebook and Instagram, and I will have the link in the show notes along with the scripture references that she mentioned. And just remember that life coaching is life changing, one renewed thought at a time.